Hello and welcome to episode 8 exit interview of Yasawa Islands. We are joined with Ian, one of our production members who did some confessionals as well as managed some scramble rooms, and of course, Robbie here to break everything down.
Yeah, so another great episode. We start off with the aftermath of another wheel. So like I
Season of
keep
the Wheel, that
season
should
of
be
the
the
wheel.
tagline.
That's it. I know I'm beating that to death right now. But yeah, so Corey just got wheeled out by this much. And like just a sliver.
Mm-hmm.
Karen almost went home right there.
Karen, yeah.
Yeah, and so we start the episode off. We got Phill and David confused a little bit. I think for different reasons, though. I think David is just shocked that people would even think about voting with him, let alone going to rocks to save him. And Phill is confused as to why it wasn't 4-2 and 4 votes for Austin and 2 for David. And that's kind of his, main focus is, what the heck. And I think the realization sets in pretty darn quick that he is in trouble, because when you're this late in the game and you weren't in the know with a 4-2, well, you thought it'd be 4-2 and people went to rocks 3-3, it's not a good sign. And he lost an ally. So
Not good.
not
For
good.
Phill.
And you know what, going to rocks there. So just to recap what Phill had just done before this episode started, Phill had an idol, or not idol, but immunity. He was safe. And it really came down to Corey agreeing to go to rocks against Karen and Jeremy. And he had a 1 in 3 chance of staying. And it didn't work out for Corey, and that burned Phill. So at that point, Phill could have flipped back, I guess, and saved Corey.
I mean, but Phill had no stake in any of this.
And the other thing is too, is like he could have tried to, like I said, flip back and save Corey, but then now it would still be him and Corey instead of him and David, kind of left over to pick up the pieces. Regardless, he would have been left with one ally in the game. So I can see why people went to rocks on his side. On the other side, I still don't get it, but maybe we can talk to those people and they'll figure it out for us. But yeah, and then we jump into the Pong and Stack challenge, one of my favorites of the season. I've seen a few variations of this through my time watching minis and whatnot, and this was great because it was a speed challenge. And anybody who's played any of these types of games, long games or short games, you can be the most calm person in the world, and this type of challenge where you have to bounce a ball off the ground, ping pong ball off the floor, off a surface, catch it in a cup, put a cup on top of it, and repeat until you have 5 layers of ping pong ball and cup. It's really easy to do when there's no pressure on. But when you play these games and you say Survivor's ready, go, your hands are shaking, you're not throwing the ball straight, you got sweat on the ball, like mayhem can ensue. And what should take, less than 20 seconds, which we'll see here, what should take less than 20 seconds could take minutes, to get going. And we see David make his first throw, David being one of the guys that's in trouble here with Phill. And he makes his first throw, flubs it, misses, and Karen goes 4 straight to start the challenge. She nails bounce, cup, bounce, cup, bounce, cup, no problem, no problem, no problem. Gets to her final ball and misses, and it rolls away. And she has to walk a couple steps and grab it. And this entire challenge lasted 20 seconds of actual bouncing and catching. Now, David had to go another 10 seconds of showing, but he was done within 20 seconds. So just that 5 seconds of having to walk and grab the ball for Karen, come back, bounce it again. David had already grabbed his last ball, caught it.
You see me calling out, oh, Karen's moving fast in this challenge. And then all of a sudden David's done.
Yeah, I had to watch it a few times because I thought I had missed something, but Karen nailed 4 in a row to start it, 4 to 5, and pretty much had it in the bag at that point. And she bounced the 5th ball before David did. And if she just would have got 5 in a row, she would have had it. And I don't even know where Phill was in this challenge. I think maybe the pressure was getting to him because he's typically a comp beast with this kind of thing this season, at least, and nowhere to be found in this challenge. But David, calm, cool, and collected, as he's shown in confessionals, came out in the challenge today or in this episode and stayed calm And even though he missed his first throw, bang, 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 got them all, and comes out with the win.
In your opinion, guys, if Karen had won that, do you think we'd be talking to David today instead of Phill? Or do you think because Phill lost that immunity still, he would have gone next?
So you're asking if Karen had won, like what would the difference have been? Now, if Karen had won, go ahead. Sorry, Ian.
I think we're talking to David today. I think just the fact that Karen and Jeremy as well also know Phill. Karen specifically was keen on keeping him for the beginning portion of the game, and that continued through the merge, even though we saw them flip not on each other, but flip sides at the Ryan Rock vote, or at the Nick Rock vote. Yeah, I think we're talking to David. I don't really think it would have been anybody else. I mean, Karen now we know she has that idol too, after this episode. So who knows, she could have done something with that too and completely changed the game. And
that's kind of what I was thinking was it would really come down to, does David go home, or, well, you know what? I don't think Jeremy would have been at risk. Because Karen has said openly at this point that she wants to go to the end because she feels she can beat Jeremy and Austin. And Austin's been saved twice by the wheel at this point. So I feel like you could have a strong argument against Austin by the end of this because of the fact that he's been, he's survived.
Well, the wheel apparently loves Austin because he got picked first for the fake schoolyard pick. He got saved by the wheel with the Nick Rock vote. He got picked first to pick his partner. He then gets saved again by this wheel, and it's like Austin is ready to keep going with the wheel.
Didn't the wheel also land on him to sit out the challenge, or was that
to sit out that challenge? Yeah.
Good call. Yep.
So like the wheel and Austin are best friends.
Yeah, I think, to get back to your question, though, I think David. Yeah, I think David likely still would have been sitting here, but then again, Phill was still at risk. Right? Like if Karen would have won, I think, and you see in this episode, she's pretty honest with a lot of people, the fact that Corey and Phill were the two people she really didn't want to go to the end with. I could see her trying to do a move to say she made a move and tell people to, just something flashy for flashy's sake, we're voting David, and then use it on David and send Phill home just to be like, I wanted to take the game into my hands and just have a move to have a move. But, it's the last time she could have used the idol, right? Final five, I think. So yeah, we don't know. We don't see it, but I mean, that's kind of the common assumption, I guess.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to bring up about the challenge, I was rewatching the episode today, and I think an underappreciated thing about these challenges and these competitions is your preparation and what you think about. So like when McKenna explains the challenge or Lauren explains the challenge, you're thinking like, how am I going to bounce this ball into the cup consistently? How am I going to be the first to get to 6 balls and 6 cups? And I'm sure that's what Austin was thinking when he set up for the challenge. He didn't think at all about like, how am I going to quickly bounce these balls? Like Austin had to, and this is where I give Karen and David a lot of credit, is Austin bounced his first 4 balls into cups, but by that time, David was already showing his cups. Austin had his balls in his non-dominant hand pocket, holding he had to make 3 transfers before he could bounce the next ball. And Karen's already on ball 3 when he's on ball 2. So I think preparation, and that could be experience too. Austin's a rookie in these games, and Karen and David they've both played before. They know what to think about. I'm sure Austin was just thinking about bouncing balls in the cups and not how can I do it the fastest. He was just thinking, how can I do this without looking like an idiot? Or I just think.
Well, you have the insight to Austin. You have all the insight to Austin and how he would think.
Austin's my older brother, so yeah.
But you know what, Ian, you nailed it.
It surprised me to watch that.
I think that's a very underrated aspect in these games is the preparation. Like experience is great when you know people, sure, you might have alliances and things, but when it comes down to it, like you just said, people who have played a couple of these, or even just one, right? Just like got to the end, or played one of these and made it far. You've done a lot of challenges, and I was in a very similar challenge in in a different game that I played, where we had to uh, move add cups to the bottom of a stack with a ball balancing on the top. And when I say it was similar, I mean ergonomically, I had the cups on the wrong side, and in the middle of the challenge, I had to kind of move myself, with the stack with a ball balancing on the top, because I couldn't reach the cups. And you make that mistake once, and then the next time you play one of these,
Yeah.
you don't mess that up, because
When
you
I
see it
demoed
here.
challenge, I had the ping pong balls. I put it in like my hoodie pocket. So maybe he was thinking, oh, pocket, great.
Yeah.
Good idea. So who knows?
Yeah, not which pocket, not which pocket. Which one can I navigate the challenge the fastest? And I didn't notice if anybody else was doing that. I had rewatched the challenge and noticed that like Austin did hit his first 4 cups. Just by the time he hit his 4th cup, David was counting his cups.
Yeah.
Didn't even
And
matter.
considering, like, I looked at the time of the episode when, you guys said go to start, and I looked at it when his last one landed in his cup, David's, and he said, like, I got them or whatever, I'm done. It was about 20 seconds. And that includes a miss where he had to get the ball and get it in there. Right. So, that's a very, that's a very incredible pace to get that many and move the cups and bounce the balls and catch them and all that stuff. But yeah, so we move on from that. David wins. We go into the pre-tribal, the scramble round, where people are trying to figure out what's going on. And I think reality hits Phill pretty darn quick. We start off with David being safe, giving a confessional saying he was shocked that anybody would even risk their game for him, and that it might have been a strategic error on their part to do so. But hey, he's not complaining. He's still here.
Right.
And the fear of him winning out is possible now, where he just showed that you kept me and I just won immunity. You guys better watch out.
Mhm.
And Phill is nervous as can be, because nobody's really given him a lot of information, and he was shocked. And Jeremy plays the same Jeremy card he's been playing the whole season. I don't know. I thought there was a plan. I don't know what happened. I'm confused. What happened? That's the Jeremy card.
And meanwhile, he says that to the person that he like betrays of sorts. But meanwhile, like in a confessional or to Karen, to Austin, the people
exactly
aligned with, so he's like, great, so that move worked.
Yeah, exactly. And it's very similar, like you're saying, to Karen's game. And I have a question later for Phill about this, where I think right now Jeremy and Karen are like the silent assassins, and I want to know how much they're seeing that, how much Phill is aware, or if it's just working. Because in every tribal, which I know we're jumping ahead a little bit, but in every tribal, Jeremy has almost an identical response, where it's like, things are going so fast, I don't know what's going on. We don't have Messenger anymore, I don't know what's going on. I couldn't even get into the meeting rooms with people, I don't know what's going on. And he's on the right side of the vote, like, every time.
Mhm.
And it's impressive, very impressive. But that shtick, I'm wondering if
you have to
10 hours in, if they're still falling for it or not.
What was that?
You have to think at this point that they are still falling for it, because Jeremy's name hasn't been brought up yet, and he keeps using. You're right. This is at least the second time that I can recall that he's used the, I don't know, something. Just, I thought this was the plan and this happened, and
I got pulled in for confessional. My bad.
Yeah, exactly. I love that one too in this season.
At some point, you just have to be like, okay, he's lying to us. And Phill and Corey just aren't, well, Corey's gone, but they just were never saying that.
Mhm.
And so you just have to think, based on what we're seeing, that it is working.
Sorry, go ahead.
The episode after Corey gets voted out, that's when Corey was going to start making his move on Jeremy, because he was like, I know he doesn't trust me fully, but I gotta keep him around just for a little bit. And then Corey's out, so now Jeremy's really, really set. Him and Karen are the only 2 people to have not received a vote, and Phill was also in that, but he received all his votes at his tribal council that he got voted out at.
Yeah, and we see Phill in this scramble round, he's talking to Jeremy, and I think he makes a bit of an error here. I Phil's kind of, I don't want to say hopeless at this point, but you got to at least try, right? You got to throw everything at the wall and hope something sticks. And I think he falls into the Carlo and Annie error where they kept going after Corey, no matter what. The vote was Corey, like Corey. It seemed like, for a while. And Phill, sitting with Jeremy, who had just refused to vote for Austin, says, well, do you want to do Austin this time? And I'm like, the guy just stabbed you in the back for not wanting to vote Austin. And the first name you throw out is Austin. I'm like, you gotta try something. There's a Karen is still there, right?
But Phill doesn't want Karen to go.
Yeah, but does he want to go? That's the thing, right? Like at this point in the game, he's got to try anything. Like this is what kind of Corey fell into. Where
I completely agree.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Phill was a few seconds too slow in the previous tribal to get this immunity idol. That imagine the game right now, if Phill would have got that idol, with your name. I'm referring to in the last tribal how your name had changed with a clue, and Karen must have messaged you before Phill spoke about it. And so Karen gets this idol. If Phill would have got that idol, him and David would have been safe here.
Yeah. So I forget, did we break down how that idol exactly went?
No, please do.
Okay. So what happened was I was having Carrie randomly change my name to I have a clue. And so whoever would say like, I want a clue, or DM me something to verbalize, I want the clue. Phill just pointed out, hey, your name changed.
Yeah.
He didn't say, McKenna, give me a clue.
Yeah, well, he said your name changed, and then Corey's like, yeah, I noticed that too. And then Phil's like,
that was enough time for Karen to DM me to say, give me that clue.
Yeah.
And she got the idol right then and there.
Yep. Once again, in the background where nobody sees her.
Like, that was a big blunder.
I was shocked at that entire thing, where they didn't personally send me a message. They pointed out to everyone, but before they sent me a message. They didn't point it out to everyone after they sent a message and got the clue. Like,
yeah, and that's the same thing Corey made. Corey, like, I'm curious if Corey had, because right away Phill says, yeah, I noticed your name changed, and Corey says, yeah, I saw that. I wonder if Corey would have said, can I have that? Like, I wonder, like, I would love to, like, it's impossible to know now, but like the timestamps on those like interactions are so close, right? Yeah. Just within moments. And we see that in this episode where Karen hops into a confessional and is ecstatic about the fact that she's got that idol. And we see a little bit later that she sits with Phill, and this is where I think what we just spoke about, Phill trying to make a move, would have been great. She sits with Phill and pretty much tells him straight up, listen, man, I know I said I was going to vote Austin, but I couldn't do that because it's not good for my game. And I think she even says, like, I'm thinking about my game at this point, not who I like the best or what people I like the most. And right there, Phill knows he's out of luck. He doesn't have Karen voting for him. She's voting against him. You know what I mean? Not with him. And at that point, I think he kind of, keep in mind, he's 11 hours in probably at this point, or 10 hours in. I think he's almost checked out, where everybody talking to him, he didn't get any love from Jeremy, didn't get any love from Karen. They all just voted against him. David is safe. I think he's, I think he knows he's done.
Yeah, we'll ask him when he gets in here if he for sure knew, but it was seeming like he was getting nothing back and forth from anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, and
I think that's why he tosses up like the lighthearted like idol at tribal council, like with the beer, which I'm gonna put some respect on.
Can I play this?
Pittsburgh based beer. So yeah, so that's just like a lighthearted thing. Like, I'm pretty sure he knows he's gone. But one question I have, and I don't know if either of you have the answer to this. Phill might. Why Austin? Like, why is Austin like the focal point of like Phill and Corey? Like, why was that their move versus like Jeremy or Karen, or even, well, David, it couldn't be last time, but why is Austin the focal point where like Jeremy and Karen are they know that they're more likely to win the game than Austin at this point. To me, as a viewer, I'm just flabbergasted. And even when we were doing the season, I was like, why is he continuously like the main target?
My thing is, I think
I
Corey painted that narrative from what we saw of like Austin's on the bottom of our 5 that we have from the original Toa tribe. So when they got Phill to come in, they were like, you're not going to be on the bottom. Austin's on the bottom. Austin, we can easily cut. It's not a big deal. So I think Corey kind of spread that around and to at least Phill. And so Phill might have told Yoloka in David, Carlo, Annie. That's my only other thought to that.
Yeah, it's a good point though, Ian. Like it did feel a little weird. Like I like personally, if I was at that point in the game as one of these players other than Austin, I'd be wanting to bring Austin just because of the things that have worked against him at that point. I could use against him in final tribal. Do you know what I mean? Like I feel like that would be like you have a lot of weapons against Austin. Whereas someone like Karen, you don't necessarily have as much. But I suppose we should fly through the tribal moment here and then bring Phill in. But you see Karen make one of her first mistakes or one of her few mistakes up to this point with how she answers a question at tribal. And I believe it was Lauren asked, I might be wrong about that, but I believe it was Lauren that asked, at this point in the game, are you worried about keeping your allies with you? Or are you trying to think about final tribal and who you want to bring to the end? Like, are you at that point in the game? And the safe answer here is, you know, I've made alliances and I've made friendships for this game and I'm going to stay loyal to those, yada, yada, yada. And it is what it is, but I want, you know, some kind of fluff answer. Could be true, could be a lie, whatever. But she straight up says, I'm thinking about who I want to go to the end with and sip aside and who I have the best chance of beating. And that's a really, you know, risky thing to say in front of everybody at tribal, but she backs it up immediately right afterwards. I think she heard herself say it. And then she goes, but I can't get there if people don't want to bring me. So I need my friends and, you know, I need people to work with me to get there. But it was like, it was teetering. If she wouldn't have finished that thought, that was a pretty risky way to say like, yeah, I'm thinking about myself at this point.
We've seen her be like overconfident in this game where she's like, I've got this, you know, like I'm good, I'm comfortable. And I'm like, why are you saying this?
Yeah. But like I said, she recovers right away and says, but I need my friends to get there. And if they don't want to go with me, I don't have any power. And she immediately takes herself down like 5 pegs and says, I can't do it myself. If I want to and no one wants to, I'm alone. So I don't have any power. You know, and you see similar comments from Austin, how he's thankful for whoever went to Rocks for him and things like that. But unfortunately, Phill doesn't have an argument strong enough to sway any votes. Even though Lauren at the end of tribal, before the votes are cast, pretty much says, Phill, is there anything you can say that might put a target on somebody else? Are you like, think hard now? And he goes, like, no, I got nothing.
All right. So are we ready?
Sorry.
No, if you have something.
I was just going to bring up how like, yeah, we were talking about like how it seems so straightforward, like what's going to happen at tribal. And then I'm pretty sure it's Karen. We were talking about her. She votes and she's like, I think this is what's happening. I can't remember exactly what she said.
She says, I know nothing.
Yeah. Like, and so how is that the case? Like, how does that, like, what other plan have you heard?
Yeah. I feel like she's just being a little sarcastic. I don't know. I think she's just,
yeah.
I saw that back and I was like, what?
Yeah.
But okay.
But to be fair, at that point, she might be because she has an idol, right? She knows she's safe. So really, she doesn't care who goes at this point. She wants Phill to go, but she knows it's not her. She might be already thinking like the next tribal. She might already be thinking, what do I say at final tribal? She might be writing down her notes for her final speeches. You know what I mean? At this point, because she knows she's in final 4 and she has a good shot. Yeah. Because that when you're playing a game that's this long, it's one day, but it's like 12, 13 hours.
Yeah.
She's really close to the end and she feels safety. She might be so distracted at this point that she's like, I don't know what's going on, but I hope it's Phill.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I say let's bring in the man who almost had an idol played for him, but it was a Zoom glitch. Because everyone commented that it sounded like she was playing it for Phill, but she said I'm playing it for myself. So let's bring Phill on in here. Hey Phill, how you doing?
I'm good.
Alrighty, Robbie, let's just get right into those questions.
Sure. I guess a little bit of background though. How many of these types of games have you played, Phill, coming in? I've asked that question for most of the people that have come up here so far. I'm curious.
I've just played the one long game, the TRHS and specialist game before this one. That's it.
Got you. So no minis, nothing like that. No,
I've
yeah.
done a mini before.
Wow. So right off the bat, then that's kind of a shock because a mini and a long game are completely different strategies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. How did you feel the difference was between those?
I mean, the biggest difference is the speed of the game. We just don't have time to talk to everybody, which it's hard because after the first one, I said, all right, next time I play a game, I want to be able to try to talk to everybody so I could try,
Mhm.
But this one I couldn't. You just don't have the time. You have 5 minutes per round to
Yep.
actually talk to people.
Yeah, and that's something we've mentioned a few times in these interviews is the fact that, as viewers who haven't been involved with the show like I am, I see these every couple of days or after the weekend's over, I get another episode. And in my mind, a day has passed, 2 days have passed, whatever. But for you, the Corey vote was half hour ago. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're already in the scramble round to try to save yourself. Like this is just bang, bang, bang.
Right. Because it's like I went from having a plan to, okay, now I'm screwed. Just like that. And now it's like, okay, now what do I do?
Yeah. So on that vote, right? So you see it comes out 3-3. You were expecting it to be 4-2. I'm talking the Corey vote here.
Right.
And you have the choice, albeit once again, very short amount of time to make a decision. You have a choice to either send some people to rocks potentially by keeping your vote the same, or flip your vote and vote for David instead of Austin. What was your thought process there?
I mean, like I said, there wasn't a whole lot of time. Everything was kind of a blur, but I was trying to get Austin out because Austin was a wild card for me because he was like the main one that I haven't talked to one-on-one. I didn't talk to him one-on-one throughout the entire game. So it's like he's not really, he wasn't in my end game. So, whereas David, if I say David, okay, maybe I can have David to work with me and Corey, and then we can try to get a final three. So I'm just going to go ahead and stick with voting Austin and hoping Karen or Jeremy, one of them would flip.
Mhm.
Got you. Did you feel like you could beat anybody that was left in the game at that point in your mind?
At that point, yeah, I think I did.
That ties into Frank's question a little bit here. He says, hypothetically, it's you at Final Tribal and you're sitting next to Corey and Jeremy. Why do you deserve to win over the two of them?
Well, I mean, I feel like I would be able to, them two or anybody, because, I think that I was playing the most. I came into this game, I wanted to be aggressive because I knew it was a mini, you have to be a little more aggressive. And I had a feeling that nobody was just going to take me very far to the end. So it's like, that's why I had to make a big move early on to get rid of Ryan and change the game in my favor. And then winning immunities keeps me safe, and it kind of helps me continue to steer the game in a way, the way that I want it to go, because they can't vote me out, so they got to work with me.
Right.
Yeah, and sometimes there's players that and I'm one of them where I like being aligned with people, and this is kind of a risky strategy, but I like being aligned with people who win immunities because the guys and gals that you're playing against are less, they're less your targets will be available.
Yep.
And so it's not all negative all the time to have those wins under your belt because sometimes people want to use that as a weapon,
Mm-hmm.
Right, of course, and then I also had Corey was in a tight alliance with me. He wasn't, I don't think Corey was going to vote against me. I mean, he even said so in his interview, because I had saved him, so we were able to work together. That's why, that's part of the main reason why I did it, because I didn't think I could trust Ryan and David, you could tell he's a schemer, and he was going to play also. He was probably going to make a move also.
Mm-hmm.
And plus when he got his clue for the idol, I asked him about it because, he said we were going to be close, and it took like an hour before he responded that he didn't figure anything out. And I'm like, I
That
don't
seems
know about that.
that
That's
seems fishy.
and that's a long
hours
time
long.
in a mini.
Right. So it's like, what, let me just, my instinct told me this is the spot to jump,
Mhm.
because then I could swing the game. I feel bad for like Annie and Carlo because, put them in an extremely bad spot. But,
Yep.
it's like I said, I came to the game to be aggressive. I wanted to try to make sure that nobody can vote me out.
Mhm.
So,
If they wanted to, they can't.
right.
Yeah,
Either they needed my vote because of the way I flipped. They want me to go back or just win immunities.
Makes sense.
Did you feel that when you had flipped, back on the Ryan, the second attempt at the Ryan vote, because you had flipped initially and it didn't work anyway, because Karen had also flipped, but then you had a second chance at it. Did you feel like the Yoloka tribe kind of let you go and the Toa tribe welcomed you? Like, did you feel welcomed by the Toa tribe? Because I didn't see a lot of that, appreciation except from Corey.
Yeah, I did. I mean, it was definitely more Corey than Jeremy and Karen because, opportunities to have a lot of conversations with everybody is slim again.
Mm-hmm.
But, I also knew Jeremy and Karen, so it was easier to know that they were comfortable with me, as a 4, to advance pretty far into the game. When you get to final 6 with the 4, that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I just wish the wheel would have spun the way I wanted it to spin, because I knew that Karen had flipped also. I think I was the only other one that Karen told, because we were still messaging at the time, at that final 10 when she also flipped. And I told Corey, Jeremy, and Karen, hey, I flipped, somebody on your side flipped also. I told them each one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
And then Karen pipes in and says, oh yeah, that was me. Don't tell anybody.
See, and this is something that I'm glad when the jury starts that the rule comes in where you got to talk on camera, because that's a pretty pivotal moment, in this season here in this mini, because, as a viewer, I'm watching this, and you mentioned how you didn't get a chance to talk to Karen much after that point, but really Karen is trying to hide and not have people find out that she flipped on both sides. Really, she's playing the loyalty card,
right,
through and through, even though she's already flipped at this point and got away with it. But she told you that, and you had kept that secret from most people. Did you let Corey know?
Not yet. That was coming up. I was holding on to that until the time came. And, if we could have got through, if me, Corey, and David all could have survived that vote at 6, and then then it would have been a good way to try to get Corey to vote against Karen.
Yeah.
Hey, Karen flipped earlier. Did you know that?
Because I think they were trying to pawn it off on that Nick was the one that flipped, and he's gone now. So like now the information is dead.
Right. And I was waiting to bring it back. I was sitting on it until the moment came, and unfortunately that wheel just denied it of me.
And this is interesting because we like to play armchair quarterbacks, as I've mentioned a few times,
of course,
where, we can sit back and analyze the episode and say, well, if I was there, I would have done it this way. But something, along those lines, one of the things that I'm hearing right now is that you had a weapon that you could use against Karen with Austin, because that flip would have been voting against Austin. I'm correct, right, on that? Like, right. Karen flipped, right? So at this point, Austin has no idea that Karen was perfectly willing to save herself by voting Austin out. And one of the questions that I actually had prepared here was the amount of people that were in the game when you went out. There's 5 people there, and they didn't need to go 4-1 against you to vote you out, right? And one of the things that would have been interesting would be to play off like you may or may not have an idol. Maybe that clue worked. right? Just to start the conversation going. Because what likely would have happened is the 3-person alliance would have said, okay, we need to put 1 vote on somebody else. And somehow somebody on the bottom of the totem pole would have got identified somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. And you had that weapon of Karen's already flipped on you once, Austin, to save herself. She's going to, she's willing to do it again. She's proven it. Kind of like something where it's just to identify, listen, guys, yeah, I'm going home, but they already said, Austin, you're next. Or they already said, Jeremy, they're putting 1 vote on you in case it's a tie. Do you know what I mean? Something like that. But once again, you had 5 minutes to try to make a masterpiece, right?
Realistically, I could have done that, but I'm just trying to, that's why I was, at first I was talking to Jeremy and, and then talking to Karen, trying to figure out, why they didn't go along with us. And it's like, you only have so much time, so I'm talking to Jeremy and talking to Karen, and then all of a sudden, at that same time, I'm realizing I'm kind of screwed. And then I'm trying to think real fast what to do, and then all of a sudden, okay, time to go to tribal council.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's not good.
Well, Karen
for confessionals too. There's always that.
Yeah, and Karen pretty much is blatantly honest with you at this point, and she says to you, "Listen, like I'm thinking about myself."
She was definitely more honest than Jeremy, because Jeremy was saying that he didn't fully understand. I'm like, I'm sorry, I know you, Jeremy. You sit there quietly and watch, and you know what's going on. Jeremy knows what's going on. But like, all right,
it's working.
Yeah, it's working.
Yeah. So then what would your plans have been if you move forward? Who is your ideal final 3 with your remaining people that you have left? Jeremy, Karen, David, Corey, yourself.
My ideal final 3 would have included Corey and David, ideally.
Okay.
Because they were the ones that would have agreed to it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's because I know I'm a threat. So it's like anybody that would want to go to the end with me, I gotta hold on.
Yep.
So I knew Corey was with me, and saving David, he would be with me, I would think. So then 3 of us, then at that point would be at 5, and 3 is what you need, and that I think would have done it.
Yeah, Ian, you have something
Phill,
there?
I was gonna play a game of what if and ask, had Austin been wheeled out and it was Corey in Austin's place this round and David won immunity, I was gonna ask what the move would have been, because I had thought that it would have been the 4 of you guys then against David. But if David had had immunity, who would your target have been then, Jeremy or Karen at this vote?
I probably would have targeted Karen first and pulled out the Karen also flip card, honestly.
Yeah, and that ties into a question that we almost, well, we did mention it earlier just before we pulled you in, where we said there right now in the game, there's been 2 silent assassins. I think we called them a minute ago. You got Jeremy and Karen that, out in the open aren't saying much, and they're playing the loyal game or the clueless card. But in behind the scenes and in confessionals, they obviously know what's going on and they're pulling some strings. Now, you already mentioned Jeremy. You kind of had an idea that, he wasn't necessarily pulling the wool over your eyes. Did you see Karen in the background as well? Or was she pretty well hidden?
A little bit. I mean, not as much, because there was other targets to be distracted by. There's a lot going on, like between Corey and David as the one tribal, and Corey versus Ryan previously, and so she wasn't like a big, she didn't have like a big target sign on her, but like as it was getting down to it, and I'm looking at the 4 of us that I had a group with, and whatever you're in alliance that you got to split up at some point, you got to start thinking, okay, I got to make sure I'm on the right side of it.
Right.
So that's why I was good with Corey, because I didn't feel Jeremy and Karen wanted to take me. I was part of their end game.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I was looking at Corey and David, because I could have done something there.
So I got a question from Denny. When asked if you were the flipper, why in the world would you say, I don't know? Why not lie or even tell the truth? But saying I don't know was, well, you already know the word I'm thinking of.
Okay.
I don't
But
know.
no, I honestly don't remember that line going like that. You know, I thought it was more like, do you know who flipped? And that's why I don't know came out. Either way, it looked weird. It looked really bad either way. But you know, I thought it
And that
was,
speaks
do
to
you
the
know who
pace.
flipped? What's that?
That speaks to the pace of the game. That I mean, you've played before, Phill. You said earlier, so you know, and you made it pretty far, so you know what you're doing. And I mean, things just that you don't have time. You don't have days or a night's sleep to think about these things. It's just 30 minutes later, or however long it was, you were asked, you know, why'd you do it, or were you the one who did it? And you didn't have time to think about like, what's the perfect version of the story I can tell to manipulate this. You just, you know, you said maybe the worst thing you could have said, but I mean,
Yeah, you
You're
pretty
right.
much said maybe. You pretty much said maybe. Like, hey, Phill, did you vote for Ryan?
yeah,
Maybe. Yeah, but you know, and it's funny too because we mentioned the pace of the game just in general because it's a mini and everything happens in one day, which is insane. But also the fact that the further you go on in the game, it gets even faster
Yeah.
because you know the challenges go faster because there's fewer people to set up. There's fewer people playing. You know, there's you're not doing it in teams anymore, so the challenges go faster. So you get right into the social round. The tribal goes faster because there's only 5 or 6. Like it goes faster and faster and faster as you're getting more and more
Right.
tired.
Right,
And
less time to think. Because it's like, because the good thing about some of the longer setup challenges is it gives you a little bit of time to think and a little bit of time to like messenger some, you know, or it gives you a
yeah,
little bit of time to think and contemplate. Okay, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? But then when a challenge is just bouncing cups and balls and there's no setup time, and you know,
Mhm.
it's just trying to figure out what's going on, and it's a lot harder.
Yep. You got anything else for him, Robbie?
just you know, I'm curious because you mentioned that your strategy going in was to play aggressive because it was a short game, and you know, in minis, oftentimes that works. Now, maybe not so visibly aggressive, I guess, but you know, if you were to play again, would you use the same strategy or would you come in with a little bit different ideas in mind?
For a mini, I probably would, because because I don't think this strategy didn't work. It was just that little bit of luck at the end that didn't work. And
Yep.
that's Survivor to a point, right? You need a little luck no matter how good your strategy is.
Yeah, I wish we had a screen share on right now to show the wheel of how that wheel with Corey, Karen, and
Yeah,
Jeremy
just
ended because you know Corey's space is this big
Well,
and there was a sliver that small left.
it's about the same amount as it was for Nick to get rocked out and
that's
Phill
right.
to be safe.
It just missed, and it just missed me at 10.
And that little bit of luck, like you just said,
Right.
it would have been you, David, and Corey.
Yeah, that the
Right?
first wheel, the first spin, it worked out perfect. I didn't want to go to rocks. That's the main reason why I flipped. But the way it played out with Karen also flipping and then Nick going home from the other side, it really worked out perfectly because it helped set up me to make a move.
Mhm.
So it
Ian,
worked. I didn't want to do it, but it worked.
Ian, do you have anything else for Phill?
no, I think that the willingness to be aggressive in a kind of game like this, as someone who loves the game, you have to appreciate.
Mhm.
Because I mean, there are people who just come into these minis and have, you know, no game plan. They just, and to an extent, that's what minis should be, because you don't know who's playing, especially on these minis that we put on. Like our casts are blind. You have no idea who's playing. There's 9 production members with their cameras on. You don't know who's in production. You don't know who's playing. But to have that strategy and to execute to get to Final 5, I mean, you got to tip your hat to you, because you won immunities when you needed to, and to be honest, you got voted out when there was literally nothing you could do about it.
No,
So
I was done at that point. I mean, I didn't. I mean, I was just trying to think of anything that I can do. So I was talking to Jeremy. He's like, "Well, do you want to go Austin now?" Even, you know, even though I didn't think he was, and Karen was pretty much telling me, just doing what's best for my game. I can't worry about your game. It's like, oh,
Exactly.
Karen. But I don't blame her,
Yep.
I mean, she owned it, so,
Mhm.
I got to tip it off to her.
Well, thank you, Phill, for joining us. The next episode and final episode will be dropping on Wednesday. We will hopefully be interviewing the eliminated castaway from tonight's episode tomorrow. And we'll catch you next time.